like a firecracker. Like this woman just, whoo, inspires money in you. How to find deals, buy, sell, flip. Donna, I got a whole thing. Actually, I did some research on Donna. Is it okay if I pull that up before I introduce her? Yes? Excellent. Let me pull this up. All right. I am excited to announce that Donna Bauer, the original note buyer, will be back for our real estate, Boston real estate meeting this week. Why is this so exciting? Because flipping seller carryback notes is the perfect strategy for making money now while you're stuck at home without your own cash or credit. Note holders need cash now more than ever, and Donna will show you how the perfect solution to get that cash in their pockets, a solution that will put cash in your pocket as well. For the last 30 years, Donna has used her note strategies to cash in on every downturn of the economy. This one is no different. She will show you how you can flip seller carryback notes to put quick cash in your pocket in the next 60 days, make huge profits with non-performing banknotes, cash in on the upcoming avalanche of foreclosures, use non-performing notes as a backdoor to acquiring rental properties, use notes to safely and quickly build a financial legacy for your self-directed IRA, and much, much more. You don't need a lot of time, and you don't need your own cash. You do need knowledge, and Donna's ready to share hers with you at this meeting. This is one of the most timely webinars we've offered. So clear your schedule for the next hour, hour and a half, and plan to attend and pay close attention to Donna Bauer, the original note buyer. Without further ado, Donna, give her a round of applause.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. And it's good to be back with Boston RIA. It seems like a long time ago that I was there in Boston, but it's good to see you all on Zoom. So thank you for having me. I was so excited when Duncan invited me because this is like the best time ever to do notes. I mean, for real. When I first heard about the quarantine and everything, your first reaction is, oh my gosh, what now? And so I started looking at everything and what are we going to do? What are we going to do? And all of a sudden I realized, what now? Get ready, because we're going to be busier than ever. Because the thing is that people need cash now. And so what I found out was people were calling me and they were wanting to sell their notes where 2 or 3 months before they didn't want to, but now all of a sudden they needed money. So I'm telling you, this really is so timely. So I'm thrilled that you can be here, and I want to share with you how you can really make a lot of money. I call it my note buyer's stimulus plan. It's how you can make money doing notes at home. So even if you're quarantined, it doesn't matter. In fact, it's perfect because you'll be able to do more deals. Okay. So without further ado, let's get started. So let me get over here, and there we go. So what is the fastest, easiest, safest way to make money in real estate? It is discounted notes. You can literally close. I need you to give me permission to share my screen. I think I'm not sharing.
You are now a co-host. Give Donna Bauer the power.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. No wonder Matthew is my tech assistant, and he's frantically trying to reach me. I thought, what's going on? Now I see. Okay, so we're good to go now. Is that right, Matthew? Are we good? Okay, so discounted notes is absolutely the fastest, easiest, safest way to make money in real estate. The fact is that you can close a deal in less than 30 days. I mean, it goes very, very quickly. Okay, Matthew, I need you to let go of things so I can move my screen. Sorry about this. Matthew, I have to have control, please. Thank you. Okay, so the thing about it is you never even have to have your own cash at risk. That's why it is so safe, okay? And it's so easy. The kids are doing it, and I'm not I'm not kidding, no pun intended. My nephew, when he was 20 years old, he asked if I would let him have a copy of my course. And so I said, sure. And I sent it home with his dad. And a couple months later, I get a call from Will, and he says, Aunt Donna, I got a deal. I said, you got a what? He says, a deal, a deal. He said, I got somebody under contract. They want to sell their note. And I got somebody else that wants to buy it. And I couldn't believe it. And at first I was really mad. I thought, he did this without me. And then I realized he actually did it with me because he was using my checklist and following everything along. And so he did this deal, and he actually made $15,000 on it, but he split half of it with the guy who introduced him to the note seller, which I thought was very, very generous, a $7,500 finder fee, But anyway, that's how easy it is. You just need to have a checklist. And what I've done is I've put together a really good system. Man, I'd never sleep at night if I had to think of everything I had to do. But I have a checklist. I have one with each file. I go down the list, get the appraisal, get the title, get the credit, and whammy, I'm done and I'm making money. So that's exactly what he did, and that's what you can do too. But he's not the youngest one. The youngest student that I know of that has done a deal is Gavin Thomas, and he was only 17 years old, and he was at one of my Notebuyer academies, and he won a second mortgage, a defaulted second that we were giving away. And do you know that he settled that second mortgage? And he made $4,500. He was only 17 years old. I'm telling you, if these guys can do it, I know you can do it. And one of the things that I really like about doing the notes is there's so many ways that you can make money. It doesn't matter what your situation is. You could be bankrupt and, homeless, and it just doesn't matter what's going on with you. And it doesn't matter what your goal is, whether you need quick cash, whether you need to replace your current income, whether you're looking to build retirement, whatever your situation is and whatever your goals are, I can tailor make a plan. You can tailor make a plan to use notes to accomplish it. But there's so many different things you can do. But tonight, I want to focus on how you can make quick cash, how you can build a financial legacy, and how you can acquire properties really cheap. So I'm hoping those three things will speak to you because they're really powerful and the market is perfect to do these three things. Now, we're going to be talking about both performing and non-performing notes. And you might be thinking, wait a minute, why would you want to buy a note if it's not performing? Hello, Donna, if they're not making payments, why do you want that note? Well, it's real simple, for leverage. Because you're going to use that defaulted note to either get the property or you're going to modify it and get absolutely super high rates of return. So if you're wondering which one should you do first, well, it depends on your personal goals and it depends on your experience. Historically, I have found that non-performing notes usually have much larger profits. Not always, but usually they do. But they take a lot more time. I mean, hands-on work time as well as calendar time. Sometimes it takes a couple years to work one out. And they are much greater risk. Okay, so if you're not prepared to handle the risk, then maybe you ought to start with performing notes. The thing is, there's so many different exit strategies. Like you might have in mind, hey, I'm only going to buy notes where I can keep the homeowner in the property and I'll just modify the note. I'll never have a rehab. I'll never deal with the property. And you buy the note and then you find out that the homeowner's long gone. And now you're stuck with a rehab that you never expected to do. You don't have the cash to do it. You don't have the resources. So I personally recommend that if you are new to real estate or new to notes, that you should start with the performing seller carrybacks. You can make really great profits with them. They take very little time. And if you do it the way I teach you, they really are risk-free. You're not going to buy a note until you've already got it sold. I mean, it doesn't get any safer than that. So then some people will ask me, well, Donna, I can't decide if I should do notes or properties. Well, for me, that's really a no-brainer because I've done both and I have rental properties right now and I'm getting rid of them to tell you the truth. I am so sick and tired of dealing with the tenants, the trash, and the toilets. But I gotta tell you, it's really wise to have a balanced portfolio. Like, I make the most money off of my notes. There's no question about it. However, if I just did all notes, I would miss out on an appreciating market and I would miss out on all of the tax benefits that you get from owning real property. So you might want to do some of each. And what I have found is, depending on where I'm at in life, sometimes my balance might be like this, and other times it's like this, just depending on what I'm trying to accomplish. But overall, I have to just say it boils down to this. Which door do you choose? Let's make a deal, okay? Do you want the properties where you're going to get this? Have you guys had any of this? Oh, God, I have had a couple of those. I have had some that you could smell across the street when you open the front door. You know what I'm talking about, right? So that's what I don't like. But this is the door that I would choose because I love making money. You can make money with notes. You can be sitting on the beach making money with notes. And that's what I love. And so, needless to say, my portfolio is way out of balance, but I love it. I'm very, very heavy in notes because they're just so easy and I make so much money and they're totally perfect for this specific market when you're stuck at home and when everybody needs money. So the reason that you're going to like notes over properties is you never own the property and you don't deal with the tenants, the trash, and the toilets, and no bed bugs. Hey, you know what? When my kids were little, I used to say, good night, sleep tight, don't let the bed bugs bite. I didn't know they were real. I had no idea that bed bugs were real. And it's like, oh my gosh, I wouldn't have said that to them, you know. But with notes, there's no rehabs. You don't have to worry about building orders. You don't have carrying costs, negative cash flows. Here's the thing. You can make full-time profit for part-time effort. I would make more money than my friends who have PhDs and they're working 80 hours a week and I'm putting in 15, 20 hours a week. And you know what? When their kids were sick at school, they couldn't go get them, but they'd call me up and they'd say, would you mind if Matthew came over to my house, to your house? He's sick at school. Can you pick him up for me? And I'd say, sure. But notes allowed me to do that. And also, you're just going to make amazing rates of return. I do not know of any other investment, and I've done everything that has to do with real estate as well as some other things. And I don't know any place where you can safely make these kind of returns. I mean, I'm going to show you some examples and you'll be blown away. And probably for a lot of people, the best thing is that you don't need your own cash or credit. Okay, you can seriously, I'm not kidding, you can do this without your own cash. So I don't want to hear you say when I get all done, well, I think I want to do notes, but when I get the money, I'll get started. No, you want to get started now so you have the money to buy more notes, okay? I promise you, follow along and you'll see that you don't need your own money to get started. But all of these things, what it's going to give you is the time and money to live your vision. So, you know, I used to lie in bed at night and I'd say, Lord, Lord, please show me the pot at the end of the rainbow. Well, he did. Wrong pot, but he did, you know. But then he did show me the real pot at the end of the rainbow. And that was, of course, to do notes. And I have been doing notes now, I hate to admit it, but over 30 years. I started really, really young. And like I said, I've done every technique in real estate imaginable. And without a doubt, I can tell you that the all-time fastest, easiest, safest way to make money in real estate is to flip a note. It doesn't get any easier than that. And it can be a performing note or it can be a non-performing note. Okay, you flip a note and you can make $10,000 in the next 30 to 60 days and not use your own cash or credit. So are you ready? If you want to know how to make quick cash, here it is. First of all, I want to share just two things that just so we're on the same page with the terminology. A note is a promise to pay a debt. In the note, you'll find the terms. I owe you $100,000. I'll pay you 10% interest, so much a month. All of the terms of the loan are encompassed in the note. A mortgage, or if you're in a deed of trust, it could be if you're in a deed of trust state, it could be a deed of trust. The mortgage or deed of trust provides security or collateral for the loan. So if you don't pay as agreed on that note, on the promise that you made, it is the mortgage or deed of trust that allows the lender to foreclose and take the property back, and then they can sell the property and recoup their money. Now, you're going to hear people say, I buy notes. And you'll hear other people say, I buy mortgages. But the truth is, you wouldn't want to buy one without the other, because they work hand in hand. So it's just semantics. No, everything that I'm talking about tonight, we're going to be buying a note and a mortgage or deed of trust, okay? What I'd like to do is start out with my Sam and Bill example. And I always like to use this because it really gives you the foundation. And once you learn how the discounting process works, then you can translate this into all kinds of other deals, okay? For me, when I was trying to learn, I just needed to get the sequence down. I needed to get the characters in, you know, he's got this, he's selling to him, and that's what this example is all about. So let's say that we have Sam Seller. And let's say he owns his own house free and clear. Let's say it's worth $600,000. Now, you need to know that it doesn't matter if it's worth $600,000 or $60,000. Same principle. The only difference is the larger the mortgage, the larger your profit. Okay? So keep that in mind. But let's say he wants to sell his house, and a friend of his says, look, you know, all you got to do is put an ad on Craigslist. Why deal with a realtor? Why pay a realtor to sell it for you? Put an ad on Craigslist and offer seller financing. What are you going to do with the money when you sell it? Why not keep the money invested in your house? So that's what he does. He puts an ad on Craigslist. He immediately gets a call from Bill Buyer. And Bill comes, he looks at the house, falls in love with it. He said, Sam, this is perfect for me and my family. He said, look, I've got $150,000 that I can give you as a down payment. He said, I'll pay you 10% interest. He said, I'll pay you $4,000 a month. And in 10 years, I'll refinance and pay you off whatever I owe you in 10 years. Is that a good deal for Sam? Absolutely. So they strike a deal, and Sam sells the $600,000 property to Bill Buyer. And in exchange, Bill gives Sam the $150,000 in cash plus a mortgage on the property, on Sam's property that he just sold. He gives him a mortgage for $450,000. Okay? So let's look at this. Was this really a good deal for Sam? Well, he got a really quick sale of his house, didn't he? I mean, immediately. And that's what happens when you offer seller financing. And he's getting 10% interest. Would you be happy with that? I mean, that's above market rates of return. And he's got some tax benefits from an installment sale. And overall, he's got a nice, safe investment. So needless to say, this is a great deal for Sam, and he's really happy. So let's say now Sam's collecting these monthly payments, and he's thrilled. 2 years go by. The $450,000 mortgage is now paid down to just over $443,000. And then the coronavirus hits. And Sam's tourist-based business is shut down. And he needs cash. He's got to take care of his family and his employees. But All of his money is tied up in Bill's mortgage. And he's thinking, oh my gosh, why didn't I say yes to Donna when she gave me that quote to buy my note last month? I should have cashed out. And so he calls me back up and he says, hey, Donna, are you still interested in buying my note in mortgage? He says, I need $375,000. And I'm thinking, that sounds like a pretty good deal to me. I ran all the numbers on it and I looked at how much equity's in the property and everything. And I said, sure, I'll buy the note for $375,000. So Sam sells me the note in mortgage. And in exchange, I give Sam the $375,000 that he's looking for. Okay, do you see what happened there? I didn't buy the house. I bought the right to collect the payments that Bill's making. Sam takes the money and runs. He takes the $375,000. He takes care of his family. He takes care of his employees. He can do whatever he wants. He never looks back and he never has anything to do with the mortgage again. Okay? Now, what happens to Bill? Does his position change? No, the only thing that's going to change for Bill is that he's going to send payments to me instead of to Sam Seller. Okay, other than that, his position stays exactly the same. So is that a good deal for Sam? Let's look. First of all, he got a down payment of $150,000, didn't he? And he collected $96,000 of monthly payments. And I just gave him $375,000 in cash. That's $621,000. How much was he selling the house for originally? Only $600,000. So needless to say, yes, this is a great deal for Sam. But what I want you to know is it's not always about the money. Many times what drives these deals home is the timing. And that's why buying the seller carrybacks is so perfect for today's market, because people need money. Their businesses are shut down. They're stuck at home. They can't do their normal routine. They need cash. So this is the perfect strategy for today's market, okay? And that's why I'm so excited about it. So let's look at it, though, from my perspective. Is this a good deal for me? Well, I just bought a $443,000 asset for $375,000. I've built in $68,000 worth of profit. Would you be happy with that? Absolutely. So do you see that when I buy this from Sam, if Bill sold the house that day, I don't just get my investment back. I get the entire $443,000 that is owed to me. So I would realize $68,000 profit in one day. Okay. So one of the great things about doing notes is you build your profit in up front. I know worst case scenario, I'm going to make at least $68,000. And the truth is, God forbid, if I did have to foreclose and get the property, because I've done my homework and I have plenty of equity in it, worst case scenario, if I did get the property back, I'd probably make more than $68,000. Those are the kind of deals I like to do, that they go south and I wind up making twice as much money as what I expected. And that happens with notes, as long as you follow my criteria and you make sure that there's plenty of equity in that deal. The equity is what makes notes so safe, okay? Now, when I buy this note, this works out that I'm getting a 13.25% annual yield on my money. But hold on a second. Didn't we just say that Bill's position doesn't change? We said that, right? And we said that he's only paying 10%. So how can I be making 13.25% if he's only paying 10? Well, it's very simple. There are two profit centers in discounted notes. There's the 10% or whatever interest the borrower is paying, and you're going to get that every month when he makes his payment. But there's also the discount that you negotiated. This $68,000 of profit is extra money that I'm going to be making that Sam wasn't going to be making because he had $443,000 invested. But if I step in and I only have $375,000 invested, then that's extra profit for me. And when you combine those two profit centers, that's what allows me to make 13.25% instead of just the 10% that Bill Bauer is paying. And that's what makes mortgages so much fun. And that's what allows us to get amazing rates of return, which I'm going to show you in just a second. So the important concept that you want to see here is the less that you pay for a discounted mortgage, the higher your rate of return. And so the more desperate people are for cash, obviously, the less they'll take for the mortgage, and then the higher your rate of return. So you can be getting great rates of return right out of the gate right now in this market. So let's take a look here again. I said that if you have your own money to invest, you'd be making 13.25% on your $375,000. But what if you don't have any cash? I mean, I was babysitting 5 kids for $1 an hour per kid when I started. I was also taking care of my own 4, but I didn't get paid for them. So I didn't have any cash to buy a note. So how are we going to do this? Well, it's very simple. If you don't have the money to buy it, what are you going to do? You're going to flip it. And flipping it is absolutely the easiest way to make money in real estate without having any of your own money, okay? And it works for both the performing notes as well as the non-performing. Now, you're probably thinking, well, that sounds great, but I still don't have $375,000 to begin with. How am I going to buy it so that I can flip it to somebody else? Well, it's real simple. You are going to use Irene Investor's money. You're going to use your end buyer's money. Now, I want you to know, you can't do this with if you're flipping a house. I'm going to show you in just a second, but that's why you need to be doing notes. It gives you a way that you can flip the note and you don't have to use your own cash. So let me show you. Now, this slide here is the most important slide that I'm going to show you all night. So pay attention. And I hope you have a pencil and paper that you can write this down. So the deal is that if you want to make money on this note, you first get it under contract with Sam Seller, okay? We said he's already agreed that he's going to sell this to you for $375,000. And we said that would give you a 13.25% rate of return, okay? All you need to do if you want to make money selling that note is to find an investor who wants a lower rate of return than your buy rate. So all you need to do is find an investor who wants to make less than 13.25. And let's say you're networking at Boston RIA and you're on the chat maybe even right now, and you find an investor who wants to buy some notes. And she's tired of dealing with the tenants, trash, and toilets. And she says, gosh, if I can make 11 or 12% on notes, I would switch to notes in a heartbeat. Is 11.5% less than 13.25? It sure is. And so that means Irene Investor, if she wants an 11.5% rate of return, she would pay $410,000 for this note. Do you think we should flip it to her? If you want to make $35,000, you would flip it to her. So do you see, like, people think that notes are this really sophisticated, hard thing to do, and you got to have a calculator and all these different things you have to do. And it's so simple. It can be as simple or as difficult as you want, okay? Let's take a look at this. All you're doing here is buy low and sell high. And whatever the profit is, whatever that spread is, that is your profit, okay? And this particular transaction probably takes about 20 hours total to get completed. How would you like to put this deal together with 20 hours of work involved and make $35,000? Those are the kind of deals that I like to do. Now, if you don't like numbers, I always like to use my brother as an example. He hates calculator. If he needs to calculate something, he calls me up. But he could do this deal all day long. And the reason is he's a people person. He knows how to talk to Sam Seller and say, Sam, what do you want for the note? And Sam says $375,000. So he knows how to pull a contract out, write it up, and get Sam signed up that Sam will sell it to him for $375,000. And he knows how to mingle at the RIA group, and he knows how to talk to Irene Investor and say, hey, Irene, how much would you give me for this note? And if she's ever bought a note before, she's going to say, well, I'd give you $410,000. And you never have to pick up the calculator, okay? Because, I mean, if you ask my brother, what did he make on this deal? What was his rate of return? He would say, enough. You know, he doesn't care. He's got $35,000 profit. Do you think he cares what his rate of return was? But the truth is you don't need a calculator to determine that, because his rate of return is infinite. He doesn't have any money invested. Now, that being said, I do have to confess that for me, I love numbers. I love calculating and saying, well, if I did it this way, how much would I make? And what if I just bought part of the note? Or what if I structured it this way? And I like experimenting so that I get absolutely the best deal I can get. But that's me. And you'll get there too. But starting out, I want you to know that it is as easy as getting one person under contract to sell you the note, get somebody else under contract to buy it. Heck, you can call me. I'll tell you what I'll pay for it. You can sell it to me. And then whatever falls out of the middle, that would be your profit, okay? So where did you get the money, though, to give to Sam? Again, it's from Irene Investor. Now, this is how you do it. There's two different ways. The most popular way is to do a simultaneous close or a double close. Now, you might have done that a long time ago on properties, but nowadays they won't allow you to do a simultaneous close if you're flipping a property. But we're not flipping a property. We're flipping a note. I used to own a title company. And all three of my underwriters, I could not do flip deals without full disclosure. Well, if you disclose to everybody all the details of both ends of the transaction, all of a sudden your deal falls apart. But they gave their blessing to doing the simultaneous close as long as we were flipping a note. Okay? So what is a simultaneous close? It is where you close two transactions back to back and you use the money from the first transaction you use the proceeds from the second transaction to fund the first one. It looks like this. Irene's going to wire her $410,000 into the title company, and your title agent will set up two transactions. The first one is Sam selling the note to you for $375,000. The second one is you selling the note to Irene for $410,000. And your title agent looks at this and says, oh my gosh, you know, Donna's going to make $410,000 on this as soon as she sells it to Irene. So if she knows that Irene's money's already sitting in their escrow account and it's about to become my money, why does she need me to wire $375,000 into her escrow account? She doesn't need it. She takes $375,000 of Irene's money and she uses that on the first leg of that transaction. So I buy the note from Sam, give him $375,000 of Irene's money. Now I own the note. Now the note that I just bought with Irene's money, I'm going to turn around and flip that note to Irene, and that's where I make my $35,000. Pretty sweet, isn't it? When I first started doing this, I was so afraid that the title companies would think I was some kind of a scam artist. And then I learned very quickly, this is routine, it is common, it is done all the time, okay? But because there was so much fraud going on with flipping houses, title companies generally will not allow you. They won't close your deals if you're flipping a house, but they will if you're flipping a note. So do you see that if you don't have cash, why not start with notes? Because now you've got $35,000. If you wanted to buy a property, you could use that towards the property. So use notes to break out of the I don't have any money and build up the cash you need to do your investing. Okay, the other way that you can do this is with an assignment of contract. So you have this under contract where Sam agrees to sell this to you for $375,000. You can sell that contract to Irene Investor. She writes you a check for 35 grand. And then she steps into your shoes and Sam sells the note to her for $375,000. It's the same $410,000 total. It's just how you structure the deal. But what's the problem with this one? The problem is that if she's writing you a check for $35,000, then she knows how much money you've made. And it's a funny thing. I get thank you notes from my investors, but sometimes when they find out how much money I've made, all of a sudden they think they've left money on the table. So I only do an assignment of contract with my investors that I use all the time, that they know how much money that I'm making and they don't care. They're happy to have the transaction. Okay, so I've showed you two different ways that you can participate with notes. If you have your own money, then you want to be Irene or Ivan Investor, and you're going to use your own cash to buy a note and hold it so that you can have a nice, safe, high-yielding investment. But if you're starting out like me, or maybe all your money is all tied up in other investments, then you want to be Donna or Donald Dealer. And you're going to flip the notes that you find. And you use OPM, other people's money, and you do it to make a lump sum of cash. Now, the interesting thing is on any day of the week, sometimes I'm Irene Investor. Other times I'm Donna Dealer. It just depends if I have cash available. And what I do is I look for notes that I think are going to pay off early. I'm going to show you that little secret in a second. And those are the ones that I keep for myself because I know I can make a really, really high rate of return on them. Okay, so depending on how much cash I have and if I like the deal, then I might be Irene Investor, but if not, I flip it to another investor and make a lump sum of cash. Now, in your overall plan, I think we can all agree that our goal is to become a passive investor. How do you do that with notes? It's real simple. You start out actively flipping notes, buying and selling, and you make 35,000 here and 50 there, and maybe 396,000 over here. No kidding. I'm going to show you that in a second. But you're making all this money, and it isn't long before you can be Irene or Ivan Investor. Then you're going to buy the note and hold it. And that is true passive investing. Okay. So this is one of my students, and he gets the award for the highest profit, at least that I know of, on one deal, flipping a note. And this was his very first deal, and he made almost $396,000. How would you like that for your first deal? So do you see that if he did this deal, that he could turn around and he could buy a $600,000 note at a discount. Okay? And so he could use that and then become a passive investor. Okay. So we just talked about if you need a lump sum of quick cash, what are you going to do? You're going to flip a note. So we got that down, Pat. I hope you're enjoying that, because right now that is a great, great technique. And that's what I've been doing for the last 6 months, flipping a lot of seller carryback notes. How would you like to build long-term wealth very quickly from scratch? I've also been doing these deals over the summer. You're going to love this. This is one of my favorite examples. This was actually a real deal. I showed this as an example at one of my Notebuyer academies. And this deal, my student Kurt, he just made up his mind he was going to do this. And so he went back to Texas, and a couple months later, he calls me up and he says, Donna, I got this deal under contract. Do you have a buyer? He had found this lady who was moving to England, and she was divesting of all her real estate. And so she had sold this property. This is a brand new note. She sold the property for $71,000. Well, she actually probably sold it for more than that, but the note was for $71,000. And it was payable over 180 months. And he got this under contract where he could buy the $71,000 note for only $46,000. Okay? Now, I want to show you how you can do this without your own cash or credit. This is so cool. So he calls me up and he wants to know if I have an investor. Well, I called one of my institutional buyers and I said, Donna, you know, there's no seasoning. They haven't even made one payment yet. We won't buy the whole note, but we'll buy the first 100 payments. I said, okay, what will you give me? And they said, $50,000. Do you see what happened there? He's got it under contract to buy the entire note for $46,000. I get it under contract to sell just 100 payments for $50,000. That means he makes $4,000 right up front. But more importantly, what happens to those last 80 payments? He gets those too. He's going to collect another $45,000 on the tail end. After my institutional buyer collects 100 payments, then he gets the last 80 payments. Isn't that sweet? So, and the really, really cool thing is, he did this in his self-directed IRA. So his IRA bought the entire note. His IRA sold 100 payments. His IRA collected $4,000 at closing. And after those first 100 payments were made, his IRA started collecting the $45,000, the last 80 payments. Now, theoretically, the IRA could do that without cash, but IRS requires that your IRA must show consideration. So I have a special clause that I put in all my IRA deals, and it is that I will give Sam Seller $100 earnest money. I mean, it could be $10 earnest money, but the fact is, whatever you give him as earnest money, that counts as consideration, and it allows you to put all this money in your IRA, and it's not even a contribution. Isn't that cool? Do you like that? Can I see some claps or some raised hands? Are you liking it? It is hard when you're doing a Zoom and you can't hear the people or see them, but this is like one of my favorite things, to be able to build an IRA. I put $29,000 in my IRA last fall on a deal just like this. I put $41,000 in my IRA this summer with 2 different deals. And I mean, it's an awesome way to build your IRA. And the fact is that most likely what's going to happen, most mortgages pay off in 7 years. You've heard that, right? So realistically, somewhere along the line in those first 100 payments, probably they're going to sell the house or refinance, and you're going to get a phone call and they're going to say, hey, what's the value of those last 80 payments that you kept? And so chances are you're probably going to get a lump sum of payment, a lump sum payment at some point in the future. And if not, your IRA is just going to start collecting those monthly payments. That is one of my favorite transactions to do. I call that my arbitrage because I'm taking advantage of two different markets. It's the seller carryback market as well as the secondary market of selling that to somebody else. And so I wind up with $49,000 in this case, and I have none of my own money invested. That's how you do it. Okay, so I mentioned IRAs. Like I said, you can start with as little as $100 in your self-directed IRA. Every deal that I'm showing you tonight, every deal that I teach, you can do those in your self-directed IRA. And if you use a Roth IRA, then it's tax-free. So think about that. And then you can use those profits to reinvest in notes. Now, if you need to set up an IRA, I highly recommend Camaplan. You've probably heard of them, being in the Northeast. They're in Philadelphia. It's camaplan.com. They are awesome. Carl Fisher totally knows notes. He's a note investor himself. You can get your deals done very quickly. They're very efficient. I highly recommend them. Okay, so do you see that's how you can build long-term wealth? Okay, so hopefully that speaks to some of you. Now, how many of you have some cash and you want to grow it quickly and safely? Maybe you might want to take advantage of this type of transaction. What you want to do is buy the note and hold it so that you have cash flow coming in. You're using your own cash in this particular case, but then you're going to negotiate an early payoff. And that discount that you negotiated up front, remember the second profit center? You buy the note and you think you're going to get paid that money over the next 10, 20, or 30 years. But what if you get them to refinance and pay you off in a month or two? You're going to realize that extra profit in a matter of a month or so, which is going to make your rate of return go through the roof. It is like the simplest thing that you can do with notes that just makes your rate of return go through the roof. And you talk about a way to take a little bit of money and grow it quickly. This is absolutely hands down the best way to do it. This is a deal I actually did. So what I did, this was a little note. I locked in a high rate of return. I negotiated that early payoff, and then wait till you see my rate of return. So I purchased 39 monthly payments, and there was a balloon on this, but the people wanted to raise $10,000. So instead of buying the entire balloon, I split the balloon, and I only bought the first $14,000 of the $25,000 balloon. And so I had $10,300 invested in it. My yield on that, my rate of return, if I did nothing but just sit back and collect those payments in that balloon, I was making 30%. And I didn't have to deal with any tenants, none of that big pile of trash that you saw in the picture, no overflowing toilets. This is all just investing in the note, not the property. And I'm making 30% on my money. But 8 months later, it paid off. I got a call from the Florida Department of Transportation. They wanted to run a highway straight through that property. They wanted to know what the payoff was. So I gave it to them. So 8 months later, I made $6,000, plus I had made my monthly payments, and my rate of return jumped to 88%. Those are the kind of deals I love to do. Now, you'll hear some people say, look, you can't always just go by rate of return. Heck, I just made $6,000 on a $10,000 investment. Where can you grow a $10,000 investment that fast? And so I will tell you this, when I started out, I had $3,500 in my self-directed IRA. I bought a $7,000 note. I helped them to refinance. It paid off in like just a couple months. So then I had $7,000 in my IRA. So then I turned around and bought a $12,000 note. I helped them to refinance. So then I had $12,000 to invest. And I turned that little $3,500 into $20,000 in less than a year, just by doing this particular strategy. So here's another one that's a great example of the high rates of return. This was a deal that I did, and I have an easy as 1, 2, 3 coaching program. What you do, as my student, I teach you how to do all of the marketing. So you could do direct mail, you can do Craigslist, you can do Facebook. I love LinkedIn. That's one of my favorite ways. So you can get referrals from mortgage brokers, realtors, divorce attorneys, probate attorneys are great ones, CPAs, builders, developers. So I give you a whole variety of different ways that you can find notes. Most people like direct mail. They buy a list of the SAM sellers and send them a postcard or a letter. And I've got all that laid out for you. So when you find a deal, then you send it to me. I walk you through the whole thing. I write up your quote and everything. And then you work with the seller. And then I work with my end buyer. We use my investors. I do all the due diligence. And then when we close on that, we split the profits 50-50. It is the best way to learn because you're going to make money on a real deal while you're learning. And this was one of my easiest 1, 2, 3 coaching deals. Rick is my student. He lives in Detroit, or in Rochester, I guess it is. And Miss Annie lived in Texas, in Dallas, and I live in Cincinnati. And so it doesn't matter. Geographically, you can be anywhere, okay? So he had sent out letters, and Miss Annie responded, and she said, look, if I can get $80,000 for this note, I will sell it to you right now. So we offered her $80,475. If nothing else happened, but we sat back and collected the payments, we'd be making over 25%. You can get deals like this all the time. But when I'm working with a student, I prefer to flip it so we've got a clear-cut profit. So I called one of my other students. I knew he was in Texas. I had no idea he was a half hour away from this property. I call that a God thing. This was planned. And so I was going to, I had presented it to him at 100,000. And he said, look, Donna, I'll give you 95,000. Well, Rick and I talked about it, and Miss Annie was really ill. And she was anxious to close out all her investments before she passed. And so we agreed that for her sake, we would go ahead and we sold it to Ivan Investor for 95,000. And that gave him a 17% return. So Rick and I made, after our expenses, almost $14,000 on this deal, and we split that. So that was a great deal for us. Like I said, about 20 hours of work in this, and made almost $7,000 for about 20 hours of work. But what I really want to show you is what happened with Ivan Investor. He is in the business of helping people to repair their credit. He's actually a real estate attorney. And so the night before we closed, he's talking to the payer. And he says, how's your credit? She says, well, I've got a few credit glitches. My husband had a heart attack 2 years ago. I'm still working on paying off the medical bills. He says, well, if I can help you to improve your credit score and get you refinanced, would you be interested in lowering your interest rate? Because I think we can get you a lower rate. She says, absolutely. 3 months later, I get an email from Ivan Investor, and he's got $117,000, and he wants to know, do I have another note he can buy? He helped her to repair her credit. He helped her to get refinanced. He gets a payoff. Look at his rate of return, 96%. And so he made $22,000 on a $95,000 investment, never dealt with the property. This is strictly working with the paper. And now he's got $117,000. Plus that doesn't count the monthly payments he received, but he's got a lump sum of $117 that he wants to invest. Do you see why I get so excited about doing notes? Like, I do this strategy all the time. I mean, it's just a great way to really increase your profits. So again, when your discounted mortgage pays off early, your rate of return is going to skyrocket. Now, a lot of people think that they've got to get into the note business, and that is so far from the truth. I mean, you could do just 1 or 2 deals a year and dramatically change your financial future. You could build a significant retirement just doing 1 note a year. I actually did a sample, a projection, if you will. A friend of mine said, look, I'll give you $100,000 and I want to see what you can do with it in 1 year. He said, but I want it back in my IRA in 1 year. And I showed him, I mean, in no time at all, we did 3 deals within a year. And I mean, it's amazing how just doing a couple deals a year can make such a huge difference in your financial status. Okay. So I hope you've enjoyed that about the seller carryback notes. I have done both. There was a time I used to have a big office, I had 7 or 8 employees, and I did the non-performing notes as well. I was buying non-performing notes when it was not popular to buy notes from the bank. In fact, I was buying them back in the early 1990s. But when I had my office, we would run a pipeline of over 50 deals at a time. So I totally know how to do the non-performing notes, but personally, I prefer the seller carrybacks. I think they're a lot more fun. They're quicker. I just love everything about them. But you don't need a crystal ball to know that in the next year or 2, maybe sooner than we think, we're going to have an avalanche of non-performing notes again. Hey, I went through this in the last downturn, and you'd be crazy not to take advantage of those. So my suggestion is that you start with the seller carrybacks. Get used to the documentation and how the discount works and all of that. Get some of those under your belt and get yourself prepared so that when all of these non-performing notes start coming from the banks, that you can jump on that bandwagon and cash in on the non-performing note market. Now, the thing you need to know about that is that the big banks, the big 5, they don't sell to individual investors. But the small community banks and the credit unions, they have discovered that private investors are a great resource for them. And so I actually had banks calling me saying, hey, would you want to sell these notes to your students? Do you have a network that we can plug into? Because they realize this is a great way for them to get the non-performing notes off of their books. So what I'd like to do right now, I just want to share a couple of really quick things that you can do with non-performing notes, and then we'll wrap this up. If you want quick cash, you can flip a non-performing note just like I showed you with the Sam and Bill deal. Okay, so you could buy the defaulted note from the bank, and then you could wholesale it to an investor. You could make a quick $5,000, $10,000, depending on the size of the note and the deal you got. And you never own the property. So keep that in mind. Like if you, like what I would do, I would get on LinkedIn. I networked on LinkedIn and I built up all my contacts of asset managers and loss mitigation officers from banks. And that's how I got my contacts. And they would send me, they call it a tape, spreadsheet of non-performing notes. And I would cherry pick. If I had an investor that was looking for deals in Detroit, I'd say, hey, I got these 3 notes in Detroit. Are you interested? Or I would cherry pick for myself here in Cincinnati. If they had non-performing notes in Cincinnati, I would say, hey, I'd make an offer on one of them. And then I would buy that note. And then I would talk to the payor, and I would negotiate and get a deed in lieu, or I'd go ahead and foreclose. But I never had to foreclose. I was always able to get the deed in lieu. And that's how I built up my rental properties. And I got great deals that I couldn't get anyplace else. So if you want to make quick cash, though, you're just going to flip the note, okay? Or you could modify the note first and double your profit. The thing is, You could buy a non-performing note for 40 cents on the dollar. If you modify that note and hold on to it, a year later, after it's seasoned, now it's a re-performing note. You could sell it for 80 cents on the dollar. A lot of people, that was their total business model. That is what they did, and they made a boatload of money on non-performing notes. Okay, and by the way, you have to be careful if you're going to modify the note before you flip it to somebody. You can't modify a note that you don't own. Well, you can, but there's a certain way you have to do it. You need to hold it in escrow, and that's one of the things that I teach in my materials. So don't just go out and do that willy-nilly, because legally you cannot do that until you've already bought the note. Okay, if you are looking for monthly cash flow, then when you buy the non-performing note, that's when you use my forbearance agreement, and that just stops the foreclosure, and you modify the payments and you keep the homeowner in there. Because what happens is, a lot of times it's a matter, they got behind, but now they're back to work, and we're going to see a lot of this with COVID. You know, they're not working now, but as soon as we get past COVID-19, they'll be back to work and they will be able to make monthly payments, but shoot, they're $30,000 behind. That's when you could buy that note, you could modify it, do the forbearance agreement, you could tack the $30,000 onto the end, you could re-amortize it. But when you buy that note for a fraction of what is owed on it, and then you restructure it, you wind up making absolutely super high rates of return. And it's a real win-win, because you're helping the homeowner to stay in the house. A lot of people use this as like a mission that they do, a ministry, to help people that are in trouble. Now, another way, I mentioned this with Gavin Thomas, you can settle a non-performing note. You can buy a non-performing note, and then you can settle with the borrower. You can either get like a one-time payment. You might buy a note where they owe $20,000. You bought it for $5,000. Hey, would you take 10 for that? If they've got $10,000 they can give you right now. Or maybe you take 10 and then $100 a month, or whatever they can afford. And so there's just so many different ways that you can structure it, that you really can make a win-win for everybody. And again, you never own the property. Okay. Now, if you're wanting to build a portfolio of properties, then what you want to do is you want to buy the note, and you could either, like I mentioned before, you could complete the foreclosure and get the property, or you can negotiate and get a deed in lieu. So that's where the borrower says, okay, I'll just give you the deed. You don't have to foreclose. Just let me out of here. I just want to walk away. And you'd be surprised how many times that's the case. They're afraid to work with the bank, but they love working with a layperson that they can feel they can talk to. And so using this technique, you can acquire properties for pennies on the dollar. So one thing that you need to know is that if you're buying a pool of notes, or even buying one note from the bank, privacy laws prevent you from contacting the homeowner in advance. So make sure that you realize that. So that I have a special marketing technique that I teach you. I market for the distressed homeowner. And then once I find them, then I call the bank. Now I already am in touch with the homeowner before I even call the bank, and then I negotiate with the bank to buy the note. It is a great way for you to have more control, to know whether the payor wants to stay in the house, whether they want to leave, whether they're already gone, whatever it is. Okay. Okay, I want to show you one non-performing note example. This was one that one of my students did, and he actually he formulated this he was sitting in the front row of one of my Notebuyers Academy, and he found this non-performing note. It was secured by an office in a warehouse, 14,000 square foot warehouse that was for sale. And it had a potential market value of $784,000, but it was listed at $599. And what he saw was the value kept, the listing price kept going down, 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 down until it was down to $199,000. And he's really thinking, why is this not selling? Well, it turned out that it was a real nightmare. There were liens on it. There was $150,000 federal and state tax liens, several of them. There was $190,000 first mortgage that was in default. There were mechanics liens. There were utility liens, and it was not in good situation. It needed repairs. The owner was in bankruptcy and going through a divorce. Here's a cool thing. So there was $45,000 in property taxes that had been sold at the county auction, and the owner did not redeem them by the tax deadline. And so what happened was Jim was so excited. And so he goes and he contacts the bank, and he offers the bank, I could not believe this, on a $199,000 loan, he offered him $1,500. He had a lot of nerve. I couldn't have done that. Well, the bank declined. So he turns around and then he offers them $15,000. I still couldn't believe that. But you know what? The bank agreed. They agreed to sell him a $199,000 note for $15,000. So he got it locked up with the note purchase agreement, and then he hires an attorney to check out this tax deed situation. And he discovered that the company that bought the tax lien, they hadn't filed the tax deed in time. You have a certain amount of time, and you have to file that deed or it becomes null and void. And that's exactly what happened. So now that's out the window. And to tell you the truth, I think that's why the bank was willing to sell it to him. They were afraid of the tax lien. They didn't want to cough up another $45,000. They didn't want to pay more attorney fees. And here, the whole thing went away. So he verifies that all the liens are going to be wiped out. He buys the note, contacts the owner. The owner he was real nice and everything, but he says, look, I'll help you go through the foreclosure, but I don't want to modify it. So it wound up that Jim foreclosed on this property. He got a $784,000 property for $15,000 plus about $4,000 in attorney fees. So for 19 grand, he can collect $77,000 a year in rent for life. How would you like that deal? Do we get any claps for Jim on that deal? I love this kind of stuff. I mean, and you can make a lot of money on the non-performing notes. And that's just one example of what you can do with them. The sky really is the limit. So in closing, I want to share one last deal with you, and then I promise we'll wrap it up. This is my favorite deal. It's not the one I made the most money, but it's my first deal, and it was a life-changing deal for me. I'd gone down to the courthouse because back then you couldn't buy a list, and so I was looking for people who held notes, the Sam Sellers. I came up with 5 names after being there all day. I almost threw them in the trash, said this isn't for me. But then I thought, you know what, I worked really hard, and I'm going to send out my letters to these 5 people. And do you know that my first deal came off of one of those 5 letters? So this young fella calls me up, and he had inherited a free and clear 4 family from his aunt. It was worth $114,000. These 2 boys did not get along. It was 2 brothers that inherited it. And David, the one that called, Daniel is, I'm sorry, I'm getting them mixed up here. Daniel buys out David. David is the one that calls me up. Daniel took care of the property. He mowed the grass, he collected rents, he painted, he did all that. David wouldn't do anything, and so they didn't get along. So Daniel buys out David, and for half the value, $57,000, Daniel gives David $25,000 down, so they create this $32,000 first mortgage secured by a $114,000 property. Is that a safe deal? Look at the equity behind that. So this was a super safe deal. 13 payments had been made. There were 71 payments left. And so the balance was $28,000. And what I did, I made two offers. One was that I'd buy the entire remaining balance for $20,000, and that would have given me a 21.5% return. But the other was a partial. And I said, David, if you'd like, I would just give you, I'll just give you $12,000 and I'll buy just the next 36 monthly payments. Now notice my rate of return is much higher on that. Well, needless to say, he takes the partial. And most of the time they do. They like the idea. It's like I can get my cake and eat it too. They get a lump sum of cash, but after 36 months, he gets to collect monthly payments again. So on that first part of that deal, I sold that to an investor. I paid David his $12,000 and I made $1,722. Now, mind you, that was over 30 years ago, okay? So that's worth a lot more than now. Well, then I immediately sent David a letter. Dear David, it's really a pleasure doing business with you. If you ever want to sell the rest of the note, give me a call. Well, how long do you think it took him to blow 12 grand? Not long. I get a call from David. He was in jail and I was his one phone call. He didn't call an attorney. He didn't call his mother. He needed bail money and he knew where to get it. Because I had told him in this letter, I said, if you ever need cash, I'll give you $6,000 for the rest of the note. And so he's thinking, $6,000, I know where I can get bail money. So he says, how quick? He calls me up. I get a call and they say, we have a call for Donna Bauer from the Boone County, Kentucky jail. I couldn't believe it. I'm thinking, what's going on? And so he says, how quick can you get this done? I'd already done all my homework. I got a quick title update. I got a lady from the Cincinnati RIA group who was a notary. We go down to the Boone County, Kentucky jail. They locked us in the jail cell. And I bought the second part of the note sitting in the Boone County, Kentucky jail. So I sold that to an investor. And on the second part of the deal, I made $3,600. So on my very first deal, I made $5,372. That is a far cry from the $1 an hour that I was making watching 5 little kids, $5 total. So I hope you can see why I am so excited about doing notes. They have been a huge blessing for me and my family, and they're going to be a huge blessing for your family as well. It's not just about the money. It's about when my kids were little, I was working part-time and making more money than all my friends, like I said before. And so it gave me not only the money to live my vision, but it gave me the time to live it. I was always available to be the room mom. I took the kids, went with the kids on field trips. I was there when the kids were sick and had to stay home from school. And now I'm doing it from home because of COVID. So that's why this is such a perfect strategy for this market. So I want to just take 5 minutes and tell you about my home study course. And I do have my Notebuyer Academy coming up in just a couple weeks. So let me run through that real quick so you can learn how you can do the same thing. If you liked the seller carrybacks, then you'll love the Notebuyer's Master Guide. This is what will teach you how to put $10,000 in your pocket in the next 30 to 60 days, and you never own the property, and you don't need your own cash or credit. And that is about a 400-page manual. It's real easy to follow. It's index tabbed. You go down the table of contents. You want to know how to put your note in a trust? Oh, chapter 18, flip to that. So I make it real easy. You don't have to read the whole thing. You can just look up whatever part you're interested in. That retails for $14.97. Then you're also going to get my Smart Seller Financing book. And this is if you are wanting to buy and sell properties without ever going to the bank, this is where you want to start. It will teach you how to create notes so that when you go to sell them, you'll get maximum cash out value. People think that they can just download a form and carry back a note and then they'll sell it And what happens is they go to do that, and they're not getting half of what they thought they'd get because they didn't use the right documents or they didn't structure it right. This will help you to sell properties fast and buy and sell properties without ever going to the bank. It retails for $5.97. You're also going to get my calculator course. Everybody raves about it. It's like, if you love calculator, you'll love it because I give you all of the really cool things that you can do. And if you hate calculator, you'll love it because I make it so easy. You'll be calculating notes in no time at all. And that retails for $3.97. So you're going to get all three of these plus. And to me, this is where I would start. So this is last year's 4-day academy, which was live. And it's the media set. So you're going to get the audio, the video, and the class manual. It's a downloadable class manual. That's all online, all online. So it's like the next best thing to be in there. And that retails for $14.97. I'm including that entire media set with the home study system. You'll also get my library of forms and documents, and that is priceless. So you get all 5 of my home study courses, and you can do that for just 2 payments of $748.50. So that's $14.97, but there's more. I'm also going to include 6 months of my Easy as 1, 2, 3 coaching. Now, this makes the difference in whether you're successful or not, just to put it plain. With the coaching, I mentioned that before, I teach you how to do the marketing. I teach you how to do everything. You follow my marketing plan. You fill out the submission form when you find a deal, send it over to me. From that point on, I walk you through the deal. We use my investors. You don't even have to come up with an investor. When we close the deal, we split the profits 50-50. This is what's going to help you to close deals right now and learn firsthand on real deals how to do note buying. So you can do that for only 2 payments of $748.50, or if you want to save $200, you can do it with 1 payment of $12.97. And just to make it even better, if you purchase by midnight tonight, you will qualify for a $1,000 rebate. And what that is, you close a deal with me under the Easy as 1, 2, 3 coaching within 6 months, and I will give you back $1,000 of what you pay for it. Why would I do that? As an incentive. Because when I tell people I'll give them $1,000 back, it lights a fire under them, and they go do a deal. And I know if I can get you to do 1 deal, you'll be hooked. You'll be just like I was when I closed my first deal. Because when I made that $5,372, that's all I needed. It was like, this works. I can do this. And I've done it hundreds of times since then over the years. And that's where I want to get you to. I just also want to mention real quick my upcoming academy. Now this year, because of COVID, we have to do a live streaming virtual academy. And at first I was kind of like not too happy about it because I like being in person, but I've changed the format and I actually think this is going to be the best one ever. It's unlike any teaching I've ever done. It's going to be hands-on, interactive, and you're going to learn by reviewing real deals. I'm going to walk you through deals I've done. You'll see my thought process. We're going to have breakout sessions, so you'll work on assignments in small groups and then come back into the Zoom and each group will report out. We're going to do role playing with the note seller. It is just absolute hands-on training. And I think for that reason, you're going to pick it up much quicker. I also, for the last several years, have been working on a new exclusive alternative to the partial purchase. Saturday afternoon, I'm going to spend going over that. So you're going to learn all about seller carrybacks, creative financing, and the non-performing notes. Okay, so that is coming up September 24th through the 27th. It will be Thursday through Saturday. It's Thursday through Sunday, but Thursday through Saturday mornings, 9 to 12, in the afternoon, 1 to 4. On Thursday evening, we'll have a Q&A, and on Friday evening, a panel discussion. Sunday morning, I always do a non-denominational Christian worship service, and then we will start the actual classes right after that. Okay, and because I can't hardly expect anybody to sit at their computer for 12 hours straight, one thing that I'm doing to make sure that you get everything you need, I'm having pre-academy webinar series. It's on the Wednesdays leading up to the academy. And we have recordings of these, so if you can't make them or you've missed them, you'll get the recordings of each one of these. And then I'm also having a post-academy Q&A. How many times do you go to a convention or a seminar and you think you've got it all and you get home and you go, what was that all about? So on Wednesday, the October 7th, we will have a 2-hour follow-up Q&A. So to take advantage of this, just go to the notebuyer.com /Boston RIA. I have a bundle put together for you. You can either, this is a summary here, if you just want to do the home study course, you can do that for 2 payments of $748.50 or 1 payment of $1297. If you would like to add the academy, you can do that for just $997. As long as you're buying the master guide system, you can get the academy for only $997. So that's a bundle price of $22.94. So that's a huge savings for you, okay? Now, I know some of you already have my master guide system from when I was in Boston last time. If that's the case, and if you are a registered student of mine, then you can attend the academy for only $997, okay? So just go to the notebuyer.com /Boston RIA. And you can either do just the home study or you can do the bundle price, either one. I truly believe that this is going to be the most comprehensive training that I have ever given. So this is really like the perfect storm. The timing is perfect. The market could not be better. And it's forcing us to do this new interactive training. So if you are wanting to make money from home without any of your own cash or credit, and you want to cash in on this market and get prepared for the non-performing market that is about to explode, then go to the notebuyer.com /Boston RIA so I can start working with you right away. So, is anybody interested? Do I get any waves or any claps?
Hey,
How's
Donna,
this
that was awesome. Thank you very much. I'm like I said, I've been doing notes for a while, not to the extent you have been, but they've always been very profitable, and there are plenty out there. And I fully endorse you and would like people to be exposed to notes. There's not a lot of competition in notes. So, it's, compared to wholesaling, notes is, I think, a whole lot easier. And once you understand the basic principles of them and can explain those to buyers and sellers, it's really easy. So thank you, Donna, for sharing that. I'll open it up to questions. Walter, if you want to jump in there, it'd be great too. If you'd like to get Donna's course, I've put links in the chat bar where you can go to see Donna's sales page and the options that she offers.
Awesome. Thank you, Duncan. And thank you, Donna. Who has questions right now while we have the original note buyer on the line? This is your chance. This is a very rare opportunity. She's a very busy woman. It's not easy making all the money she makes and having the family she has. But this is time she's cut out her month to make sure that she's here to answer questions for you guys. So if you do have a question about notes, this is your chance. Take action now. This is your time.
Walter, it's very good to see you again.
Donna, thank you so much. It's not quite the same. We don't get to the hug, and your energy though, your energy converted very well over camera. So I'm really impressed. I knew you'd do wonderful, and it feels like you're here with us. So,
well, it's good to be here. I just When Duncan called me, I was so excited because it's like you couldn't pick a better time to do this, you guys. It's perfect. So, but I am happy to answer any questions. Do you see any in the chat?
There were a few hands that were raised. So let me just go back here. Yeah, just raise your hand or jump into the chat there to everybody, and we'll pick up on you.
Yeah, if you have a question, you can actually just unmute your line or drop it in the chat. And while we still have Donna here, her valuable time, we can ask these questions. If you have a question about her course or what she delivers, now is definitely the best time to be asking. If there's any concerns on whether this is an amazing value or whether you're the right person to do it, now is a really good time to ask. I know the first time I watched Donna, I said, oh my God, this is amazing. This is something I want to get into. But I felt like I was doing too many things at the time. I wish that I had jumped on it then. Just I was talking to Mitch Dorsky, who's on the call here as well. And Mitch was saying that the way Donna explained this, because he's listened to notes before, but the seller arbitrage, the ability to actually put no money into investing in notes. Mitch, what did you think about the presentation? What was your opinion of it?
Honestly, it was awesome. I'm used to people talking about non-performing notes. I know a couple investors, they've spoken for me that's their bread and butter, and they do very well at the non-performing notes. The seller carryback was Donna just taking it to another level. Like, it was kind of like mind blown. I was like, I am even more interested in notes now, because the non-performing can work out great, but it takes a little work, and some people are afraid of that. If they're gonna be able to get that note performing again, or get that person to refinance. That the carryback was just taking a new tweak to it, and I loved it. Like, I think lowers the barrier of entry even more for people.
Absolutely. And the difficulty with investment like this is knowing how to get started, right? That is by far the hardest part. I know when Duncan started investing in notes, when Donna started investing in notes, it was like, oh my God, everything seemed like it could be a mistake. Everything seemed like there was an issue, a big giant devil behind every corner. But when you have somebody who's done it before, when you have somebody who's done it for 30 years, who literally is called the original note buyer, you have that confidence to start doing deals, and you may actually accidentally make some money. And that's how it works when you don't know anything.
It wouldn't be accidentally.
Let's just pretend it works. Let's just pretend that you follow all the steps, and you rely on Donna, and you ask her, hey, can you review this one? Does this look like a good deal to you? And you go and you make that first $5,000, $10,000. Who here thinks that would change their lives? By a show of hands, an extra $5,000 would make your life a little bit better right now. Yes. What questions do you have? Is it that she just delivered so much value that you understand clearly what's going on here? Hands to the camera if you feel you got a very good understanding, much better than you had previously. Yes.
So
William has a question on dates, Donna. He just said, I was wondering if you had other dates for your training. Reason I have, I guess, other commitments on your dates coming up. I mean, how often do you do your other academies?
I only do one a year. And the reason is because the rest of the year I'm doing notes. Unlike some people, I really am in the note business, and I really do work with my students. And it's hard to balance that. So I only do one a year. But here's the thing. Matthew, who you met when I first got started, he will be running the virtual event. And as quickly as those recordings can be rendered, we will be pushing those back out. So like if you have to work during the day, Thursday, hopefully Thursday night, you would be able to listen to what you missed. So you will get the recordings of everything. And I think you would be able to go through that as well. Plus you're going to get the media set from last year. See, the media set from last year was more lecture. Like the manual is huge. The media set from last year is probably the most comprehensive program that I've ever done. And so I recommend that people start with that and go through, and that will give you a really good foundation for this upcoming academy, which I'm not going to be doing a lot of lecture. I'm teaching you on real deals. Instead of telling you what you need to do to evaluate a note, I'm sending you a hard copy manual. You will get that in the mail before we get started. And then you're going to look at real deals. And I've got sample deals, real deals. I've got a little bit of everything. And so we will evaluate those together. And then we're going to break out into smaller breakout sessions. And as a group, I'll give each group several deals to evaluate. So it's hands-on, where you will learn from discussing and reviewing actual notes in mortgages. And it's just a much, much better way to learn. And then what's really cool is with the easy as 1, 2, 3 coaching, all you have to do, it's not like you've got to go through this 400-page manual. I do that because that's the way I learn. I want to soak in everything before I get started. But I got to tell you, the majority of my students, they focus just on marketing. And most of them like to buy a list, and they send out letters or postcards. But I got a lot of people that they find all their deals on Craigslist, and they'll scrape Craigslist going through different cities all over the country. But however you want to find the deal, and you simply fill out a submission form and you email that over to me. And from that point on, I walk you through the deal. And I'm going to send you an email back that says, I love this deal because it's got plenty of equity. It's been seasoned, whatever it is. Or, I'm sorry, but this deal, I would really be afraid of. There's no seasoning at all. They didn't have a down payment. The borrower's credit is lousy. I explain everything about the deal. And then I actually write out the offer. Anything that I have in red, you could literally read it to the note seller. So I'm taking all the guesswork out of you working with the note seller. I'm holding your hand. I will even get on the phone and negotiate the deal if you need me to. And so I walk you through the whole process. You see it firsthand. We use my investors, and then we split the profit 50-50. And the people that have the coaching, those are the ones that really go on to close deals by themselves. I think that's invaluable.
Absolutely.
Hey, Donna, I'm sorry, Walter.
Oh,
There are quite a few questions coming in there now, so
Okay.
I'll let you, Walter, drive those through. One person's going to contact you directly just because of some difficulties they have with the, everybody wants to negotiate. So they'll that would be Lorinda. And then
Did you give them my email?
This is one of the best. And Carrie is saying, when will you get a list of sellers, or do you have to find them? I guess is one. And Alan's asking, do these strategies work equally well legally and profitably in all 50 states?
Okay, let's take first, as far as getting the list. Actually, that is one of the things that we're going to do at the Academy. I'm going to go online, and there's several different list providers that I recommend. You can find them just by Googling seller carryback list, and you'll get all kinds of different people. But I've got arrangements with the ones that I prefer, and they will give you a discount or give you extra if you say that you're my student. But we'll go online during the virtual academy, and I'll show you what parameters you want to select so that you get the best notes that will give you the best results. So I'll be teaching that at the academy. But you buy the list, and then, and I even have tried and true letters. When I sent out letters, I had a 6% response rate and a 1% close rate. I would sit down on a Friday night and I would make up 200 letters. And so that means that I would get 2 deals out of those 200 letters. Now, mind you, I might go for a month and not get anything, and all of a sudden I got 3 deals out of the next batch. It's not always, on that first one, I got 1 out of the first 5. But I averaged a 1% close rate, which is phenomenal. Any marketers will tell you that. So the letter, it's tried and true. It really works. And then I have developed a very special postcard campaign that is equally as powerful. So I teach you exactly how to do that. There'll be no guesswork in it. And then at the academy, we're going to do some role playing. So you will hear people talking with the note seller. How do you gather the information? What do you say? And then again, when you present the offer, how do you present it? we will have, I will do it, and then I'll also have some students doing it as well. I mean, truly, this will equip you. When you get done with the 4-day academy, you will feel like you've already been doing notes. So it's very, very helpful. So as far as the other one, the other question about it, does it work equally as well in all states? It does. And now there are some nuances to some states. For example, in Florida, you cannot market using an LLC. You have to market in an individual name. That doesn't stop you from marketing, but you need to know that that's how you're going to send out your postcards, with your name as, on the return address. So there's nuances like that. One of the things that I do is when I'm talking to the title company, they know what laws are, like if there's, for example, a big thing is sometimes they have specific language or on the assignment document, or maybe they want another party to sign it. You know, both parties have to sign the assignment document, things like that. And I can find that out through the title company that I'm working with. So the big thing is that you need to close the deal the way I teach you. The key is that you need to be a principal in the transaction. And the two ways are what I showed you tonight, using the simultaneous close or the assignment of contract. In that way, you are not a broker. You never ever say you broker notes, because you have to have a license to do that. In most all states, I would think. But as long as you structure your transactions like I teach you, you don't need a mortgage broker's license.
Very good. I think that answers both of those questions. Donna, there's another question in the group from Luciana Milan. She's asking, are notes only from seller finance deals?
It is funny how that works. That, I mean, I'm open to doing either one from banks. I'll do performing or non-performing, privately held or banks. But it just so happens that on the seller carrybacks, those are all performing notes. Because most people who've carried back a note, if it goes bad, they want the property. They're going to foreclose and take the property back. So they normally don't sell those. Banks normally sell their performing notes to hedge funds. Now, sometimes you can buy performing notes on they call it a one-off basis, where you're just buying 1, 2, or 3 at a time. But most of the time, you're going to find if you're buying from like a small community bank, those are going to be non-performing notes.
Excellent. Good answer. I have another one from Dorina. She's asking me if I want apple hookah tonight or watermelon. I will go with apple. Another question from Ron. This is for you, Donna. I know. Do you directly work with each student, or do you have a team of people? How many students do you work with at a moment or in a time?
That is a great question. And you will work personally with me. The only time that you don't get me personally, I was in the hospital in January, and I had to have students work with some other students. But that was the only time in 30 years. So you will work with me, but here's what I do. When I get overwhelmed with deals and I can't handle all of them, then I have a mastermind group, and I have some of my note masters help me with the due diligence. So they could be working behind the scenes helping me, but I'm the one that will be interfacing with you, okay? Because I think that's an important, part of the concept. And the thing is that most students do their first 1 or 2 deals with me. So it's not like a repeat thing, because why should you split the profit with me? You do 1 or 2 deals, you got it down pat. You should do it yourself, keep all the profit. That's my goal. And so I constantly have students coming and going. As they learn, they move on and go by themselves.
And so Donna, you kind of preluded to something there. You mentioned that you have a mastermind. You mentioned that there are note masters. I assume this is a term that you created within your community. How does somebody become a note master? This is just a personal question.
Well, you have to qualify first.
Okay.
No, it's a small group, and I don't know that I should bring that up on here, but it's very much, Walter, like yours. They pay an upfront fee and then a monthly fee, and it has been awesome. I've been doing it for 2 years. The people totally love it, and the people that are in the Note Masters group are the ones that are working it full time. So it's pretty sweet. It's very much like what you do, Walter.
Oh, very cool. So you're building a good community. So this first course is kind of the first step to getting into a next level. You have multiple tiers after this. If somebody actually finds that they're good at it, they like it, there actually is another way to get to another level. So that's, to me,
Yes.
when I sign up with a coach, I always want to see that the coach doesn't just pick you up and drop you. Like there's more and more after that. So very
Right.
cool. And I think there's another question. Um, I have a question, a real estate doing an IRA deal. Janice, if you could reframe that, I'm not 100% sure. Don, do you know what that means?
No.
I unmuted. It says RIA doesn't mean real estate. It just means referring to.
Okay.
Okay.
So glad to be here. I'm in San Diego, but I'm originally from Milton, so I know how to
From
park
where?
my car.
Milton, Mass. It's close to Boston.
Okay. Hey, sorry.
Hi, Donna. Thank you. So I have a question about doing an IRA investment, especially people who have like small amounts in their Roth, or I'm even doing investments now in my HSA account. So what's the best way? Like you mentioned a couple ways, like if you make the contract, do you flip the contract or do you do a double close? Like I guess, what are the options for buying an IRA if you don't have the money in those small accounts?
You can do either one of those inside the self-directed IRA. Either one will work. For many years, I only did the simultaneous close because I didn't like the idea that if I did the assignment a contract, they would know how much I made. But now I'm working so much with students and they know what I make. I mean, we're splitting profits and everything, and they know what I typically make on a deal. And so it saves closing costs if I do the assignment, because then I don't have two sets of closing costs. So in the last couple years, I've moved more towards doing the assignment of contract. But I would not recommend that if I were you and you're just dealing with an independent third-party investor.
Right.
I would recommend the simultaneous close so they don't know what your profit is.
Okay. Thank you.
And you can do both of those in your self-directed IRA.
Perfect.
Awesome. Great question. Great answers. If there are any other questions, please feel free to speak now. We'll probably hang on another 4 minutes. I do see one statement from William Vanderwater. He says, "Thank you, Donna. Awesome information. Thank you. Reason I can't make 3 months ago, a commitment and I already invested in. I wish I could change, but locked in, no way." So it sounds like he has a commitment to work with you at some point, but he's got a previous commitment. Overcoaching is another dilemma in our business, but at least you have her lined up. I think that Donna is probably the right step, and you know that. So when it's right, you'll move along with her. Donna, do you know who William is? Are you looking forward to working with him?
I would love to work with William. I do want to say something, though. If you can't make the academy, I do have the recordings coming up, but at least take advantage of the home study and do the easy as 1, 2, 3 coaching. And keep in mind that when you do the home study, you're going to get the entire media set, video, audio, and a downloadable manual from last year's in-person academy. And honestly, that's where I would start. That is the most comprehensive, easy to follow, in order training that I've got. So that's what I would start with. And if you are planning on coming to this year's academy, I would try to get some of that under your belt before then, because it will help you, it'll give you a good foundation for this year's academy.
Awesome. Perfect response. I don't see any more questions in the chat. Duncan did just drop the link again, so we're about to close this out. If you haven't grabbed the chat, if you go down to the bottom right, there's a little section that says File. Download the file. If you're not taking action today, well, let me just remind you that successful people take action now. That's just an element that is part of success. But if you are saying, look, I don't have time to capitalize on all of this, download this link. You'll have all the contact information. Procrastination is deadly, right? Fear of action is deadly. Analysis paralysis is deadly. You've got to get somebody in your corner. You got to start taking action. I know my community is in here taking action already. If you haven't had a chance, go and download and grab those links now. This is your opportunity. Before we log off, I want to say thank you to everyone on the call. Give yourselves a round of applause. for being here. It is not always easy to dedicate time on a Thursday night to stay this late to listen to a topic about making money and making wealth. That makes you different. There were 67 people on the call. There are only 39 of you. You are the true hardcore, the ones who are really serious about being successful in your life. So from all of us in the Boston RIA, from Donna on her behalf, I want to thank you for your time, for dedication. Let's give Donna a round of applause for all the time that she spent with us tonight, dedicating, mastering her skill, mastering her craft, building a community around this, beta testing, taking the years it takes to learn how to communicate a complex subject like this to make it easy for you guys. Give her a round of applause. Very awesome. Thank you, Donna.
Thank you. And it was a pleasure to be here. And I see some familiar faces. So thank you for having me on. And I can't wait to work with you all.
Awesome. And thank you, Kelly. Thank you, Duncan. Thank you, Sarah. To everybody on the call, wishing you all the best. Cheers to your success. When you have a choice, always work with the best. Later,
Bye.
guys.